All right, guys, it is time for your favorite part of the week. It is shop night, and you know what that means. I am joined by my guest. He is the 2023 Wisconsin International FRC Super Late Model Rookie of the Year. Your friend and mine, the big LG, Lou Goss.
Hi, Chris.
How you doing, Lou? How you
great.
doing, bud?
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm feeling better. I'm
Good, yeah.
excited to be here. We just got done watching our team win the game. They're in the playoffs now.
Go Pack.
That's right, go Pack. And so what you been up to?
Well, just working on this thing and trying to get the shop buttoned up. We had an electrical contractor here today, hung the new electrical panel and the meter outside, so we're still kind of on temporary power, sort of, but we've got things situated a lot better. I don't know if you can see it in the camera shot, but we got boxes on the outside of the wall, and we got our furnace hung, and yeah, some good things going on. So we've been working on that and, calling sponsors and doing some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I will tell you, this does look a lot different from when I was here last time. And I see you got the things here and starting to come along. Mm-hmm. I also noticed the car's missing some stuff here, and I know this isn't by design, or you're not trying some new trick thing out. So what you doing on the car?
Well, of course, part of our normal off-season work in general is to bring our engine in to get it freshened as long as there's enough races on it. We had 13 or 14 nights on it, a couple longer races in there, so we figured that was enough, and we're getting ready to take it out. We made some good headway the last time, and I think when this video's done, we'll finish pulling out. We got exhaust, oil lines, everything, electricals off it. I think it's basically ready to come right out and put on a stand and ship it to Thierry's Engine.
Now, for a lot of people that don't know, what does that mean to bring the engine out there and have them freshen it up? So, they're thinking, you're going to bring it out there, they're going to spray some stuff, clean it, and...
Yeah, they'll do some of that, for sure, because they always need some cleaning, but yeah, it'll be, a simple rebuild, be rings, gaskets, bearings, springs, that sort of thing. We don't really have anything too major planned for this year, so it should be a quick and easy turnaround.
Now, do you guys do you call them up and just say, hey, this is what I need, or do they ask you certain qualifying questions or anything when you call them? Or
I usually, unless I'm, super privy of different rules changes, I'll ask them if they've got any updates planned, and whether it's a yes or no, we usually always just kind of go for whatever they got.
Okay, and they're up to date on the rule changes, because
I
take it they deal with cars from
all over the place.
Okay,
yeah.
So
they got 60 to 80 engines in there, a lot of asphalt, short track stuff. So they're very aware of different engine rules. Yep.
Okay, and that's one thing I wanted to make sure, because they may not be too familiar with it. Hey, you're just sending it up, and they're just going to put any old thing on there, but they make sure that it's up to the specs for the divisions and things that we're competing with.
Yeah.
And so then once you get the engine taken out, they bring that up there, and then what else happens from there?
Well, they'll pretty much just handle it, keep us abreast of anything major that's got to go on, and we'll kind of just, get things prepped here for it to come back and drop it right back in the car.
You mentioned you're on the phone with sponsors, and you're calling sponsors, you're renewing relationships. How's that going?
It's going well. It's going really well. Yeah, I've got some extra free time right now, and so I've been using that to do some of that stuff. And we've got some, commitments from past sponsors, which is awesome. Super appreciated. The ones you see on the car now, and some new ones we're working on. So, we can not only race more, but have a few more resources to get all the things we need.
Mm-hmm. And do they ask about how things went during the season, or I take it they stay up to date with your posts and everything? Or
yeah, we try to keep it like doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Keep things a little bit more active, and especially during the off season, there isn't a whole lot going on. So this is a great way to keep our sponsors, in the limelight, if you will.
Yeah, and I like that you keep them abreast and let them know about what's going on, and and they see this and they can hope that, hey, we'll get featured on this, or we'll get seen in a Facebook post, or something that'll let them know what's going on.
Yep.
Now, also over the weekend, there were some schedules that dropped.
Yep.
For some of the racing series here in the area. The Big 8 dropped theirs. I know there was a little tease of some of the some of our competitors dropped their schedules for Wisconsin International Raceway. The Tundra dropped one of theirs. Mm-hmm. So questions here. Are you going to be running that Tundra opener? How do you feel about some of the things you're seeing?
Yeah, that's always a really smart one to run, I think. And we did do it a couple years ago. We were a little bit more prepared to go ahead and do that. But it kicks off, I think it said May 17th, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the week before the weekly series, or might even just be that Saturday before the weekly series kicks off. And it's a real good test and tune. There's a new tire coming for everybody. I'm sure Tundra will be on that tire, likewise as the weekly series will. So it'll be a good long day to test out the new tire. Mm-hmm. And it would be really great for us to get that on our schedule.
I would be all for it, running the opener. Is there anything, let's say if you go to the opener, are you kind of going to maybe lay back a little bit, or, because with the weekly series, you don't want to go out there and, let's say, maybe get caught up in something and, sit back up here trying to figure out, what went wrong. Is there any plans, or do you have a strategy for it? Or
Well, laying back isn't really going to teach you anything. And despite popular belief, Chris, we're not laying back. But you saw last year, right, in the Tundra race, I think Sawyer Efforts had a shock or something break and really destroyed that car. Mm-hmm. Bad, and it took them, they had their struggles throughout the year. They ended up finally getting some speed towards the end, but they had a tough time. And that early on to set you back is tough. I mean, we wrecked ours at the same time, and it took us a long time to get back going again. Day before it.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing I always hear when the teams go there, they always say, "Hey, WIR is, tears up equipment." Mm-hmm. A lot of the Tundra guys, or some of the stuff that I hear, is they talk about how that track can be very treacherous on equipment. With the fact that we'd be running the Dells months before, does that help going into that when you bring your equipment out there running a race before that, or even if you go to New Smyrna and do the World Series of Speed, does that help when you go into something like this?
I think so. I think I don't know if it was Trickle or some old racer from back in the day, but someone had mentioned that if you can get your car to turn well at one track, for the most part, it's going to turn well at lots of tracks. Mm-hmm. There are some tracks that are kind of on their own, right? And it won't necessarily apply to it. But if your car is going to turn well, I think at the Dells, or it's going to turn well at Golden Sands, it's going to turn well at Marshfield, it's probably going to turn pretty well at WIR too. WIR is a little bit different, as it's so rough compared to those three that I mentioned. But it doesn't have like crazy banking or anything, right? Slinger's got crazy banking, so it's kind of hard to judge. Or a place like Norway has such low grip, it's a little bit tougher to judge there too. That's more of a power issue, but yeah, I think if you can get some laps at certain tracks prior to WIR starting their season, I think you can have some good notes. You don't necessarily have to go there to get those notes.
And a lot of people say, do you lean on your notes from last year? Do you kind of maybe use a little bit of it and just say, hey, this is a new year, I'm going to see something different with the fact that there's going to be a new tire? Does it cost you to kind of maybe almost toss those notes out, or how do you go into that?
I think off the cuff, you got to start with what you had. Theoretically, it should be pretty close, right? But there's always lots of chatter, which is really nice. We have there's a super late model driver chat, and they're always kind of letting everyone know as new tires come, kind of how they react. All of us are always watching race in the off season, and a lot of times they're on those new tires, and you just kind of pick up on little things. So you try and get it close to start with, right? If you have the advantage of having a few sets of tires to kind of test on, good, but that's not always the case. We've got a set of ST1s and 2s that are pretty decent that we're probably going to scrub the first few laps on here in the spring, and we're trying not to get too much oil on them in the shop. But so that's kind of our plan.
Now, switching from that, I had somebody ask me a question, which they sent in to Chris Marshall 91 at yahoo.com. They said, "Hey Chris, why is there's no silly season? Why is there a lack of silly season?" And I kind of shorted it up by telling them, "You're not going to fire yourself from your own team. So it's not like I'm going to say, 'Hey Lou, you know what? I'm going to bring in Tyler Reddick for about 4 or 5 races.' Imagine the money that would bring in." But
we tried that last year.
Yes, we did.
Anyway,
and he had other things that he was doing. But when people say like, "Hey, there's no lack of silly season in super late models," what do you tell them?
Yeah, well, first of all, right, it's the Lou Goss racing team. It's not the Chris Marshall racing team. Sorry, Chris, but if it was, you could go ahead, John. Just kidding. But I would say the silly season in local short track racing, there is one. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't drivers switching cars out per se, but we're keeping up on rules, we're keeping up on schedules, we're keeping up on tires, we're trying to maintain our stuff. It's plenty silly. I mean, we're still meeting every week, and me or even others stop by throughout the week to continue to help. It's plenty silly. It's just different.
Yeah, and you mentioned before that, you guys talk in chat groups and stuff like that, or you guys have which I just found out. I think that's really cool that you guys do.
It is cool. It actually is really cool.
Because I can't imagine, and I don't know if they do that in other sports where you could have Michael Jordan and some of the other guys chatting together saying, "Hey, did you guys see this rule change?" So I think that's really cool that you do that. And, with the silly season with us, yeah, you are right. We have the schedule changes, and then when you guys have the rule changes, how's all that? Because you guys go to the meetings, and I went with you guys to those.
Yep.
And boy, for people who haven't been to a meeting like that, could you maybe explain a little bit of that, or how that would be if I'm an outsider and I'd never heard of a 10-inch tire, or why a 10-inch tire this, or why this is a big deal, why the super stockers want to be over here versus over here, and that is something else.
I would say a lot of the first of all, I hope you appreciated the meeting, right? But a lot of the parts rules seem to change usually for cost reasons, I would say, or safety. Mm-hmm. Cost or safety reasons is generally the biggest thing for that. And that's really a lot of times what drives it. There's different rules with rear end lockers coming out, because those can be expensive. So those are not allowed in rules anymore. Mm-hmm. 3-4-way adjustable shocks, those get super expensive. Those are either they're not allowed at all, or the cars have to put extra weight on them to run them, right? And it's really kind of a lot of that stuff is cost efforts. So that's the biggest thing, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, the super lates follow a unified rule system, which I think in theory is really great. A lot of the tracks have very common rules, so it's easier to travel, which for us last year, we did a bunch of it.
Yes, we did.
Years prior when we've done that, we would have to change ballast back and forth on the car. We had to do different things to meet rules at different tracks or different sanctioning bodies. So we don't have to do quite as much of that this year. So really, the super lates were kind of at the mercy of the unified rule system. A lot of the other classes, I think pretty much all of them, still have their own rules per track. Unless it's a traveling series, right? Then they're just following the series.
And if I remember correctly, it was Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, is it Minnesota that all unified to run the same rules? And I may be forgetting another
I don't know if it was all the states. I thought it was just Wisconsin.
Because I don't know I always thought it was Illinois and some of the other ones that did that, because...
It could be, maybe.
Okay.
It could be, maybe. But I think maybe it was just a group of tracks. It was WAR, Slinger, Dells, Plover, Marshfield, Norway.
Okay.
Madison, maybe, or something like that. Right? lacrosse. I don't actually; those might not even be part of it because I think like lacrosse is a NASCAR sanctioned track, so then I think they have a little bit different rule thing.
And this year, the Devils will also be a NASCAR sanctioned track.
Yeah, for their weekly shows. Yeah.
So
I don't know how that all fits into that. I think like if for Live for 5, it's still like the unified rules. I'm thinking.
I think that's really cool for the Devils.
Yes, I think it's cool.
I like the fact that they're in this, that they're going to be taking over and doing that.
Yep.
Really great track to be at. And a track that I hope that, we go back and end up winning at.
Yep.
To wrap everything up, I am going to ask you a question here. And, I'm a fan of nostalgia.
Yeah, me too.
So, if you had a chance to go back and race in a particular decade.
Sure.
So we'll go back to the 80s.
Yeah.
With Trickle. We'll go into the 90s.
Yeah.
Go into the 2000s. Go into the 2010s if you want.
Yeah.
So if you had a chance to choose, and then the track.
I would say if there was a decade, it would probably be like, that like 70s era-ish. I long for those stories where I hear guys could still race for a living running locally, and
yes.
I think they could still do that then, but at the same time it was all starting to become kind of have national popularity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the track, boy, I'm such a sucker for every track. Like, to be totally honest, I guess if we were to get like real nostalgic, maybe like Lake Geneva.
Ooh.
I was there as a spectator, if you will, helping my dad out when he ran the old Mid-American trucks. But I never got to race it myself. So, yeah.
I went there many years ago, back in '98.
Sure.
And I was blown away by how the track was.
Yeah.
And, if I had to pick, it'd be the 90s and Rockford Speedway.
Sure.
Racing against, the Builderbacks or Hanson when he came down from ASA. So I would say, for me, it would be 90s Rockford Speedway, mainly because I didn't live too far from there, and I could hear the cars from there.
Yeah.
But
and your dad raced there.
Yeah.
You didn't say that.
Yeah. My dad raced there too. So, and I know he's going to be like, But, for next week's show, why don't we give a little preview of what we have for next week? So next week, what do you have going on next week?
Well, I think we'll go over the car a little bit more. Hopefully there's more work done to it. We're going to have our first sponsor interview / part car owner interview. The Mike Hubbard. I don't know if it's on the camera over there, but great guy. I've known him since kindergarten. We reconnected a few years ago, and now we own part of this race team and have tried some different endeavors together, and just great. And want to get him on camera and promote his business. So. And
this will be important. This will be very important for the whole, why relationships are very important in racing, and why sponsorships are very important. Because I've had people ask me, "Hey, Chris, my favorite race car driver, he just gets into the car and the only thing he has to worry about is racing." I said, "Who's your favorite race car driver?" He said, "It's Chase Elliott." I said, "Well, there's more to it." They go, No. So, I feel this is going to be very great for, people that see it from one side of it, so they can see the other side and just what his role is and, how he got into this and, maybe his background.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested. I'm very excited and interested to have him on next week and go over that with Mike.
Yep, that'll be fun.
All right. And for the rest of you guys, thank you for tuning in. And, I guess that's all we got, right?
It's Monday.
Yes, it's Monday. And you know what that means.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, man. You know.
Nice.